There seems to be an awful lot of sad stories in the news today, and there are thousands missing. Does anybody care? New day or channel where we talk about those faces. Talking news. Debbie. Cassie Barons has still not been found, and it's been 2 years since her case first hit the spotlight. Breaking. Chad Daybell and Vallow both behind bars. Sarah Galloway was found. She wasn't found alive. What happened to Sarah Galloway?
It's too heartbreaking to share.
Children are still missing. Children like Dorsey. You're in shape. You just got away with it. Welcome to Talking News. Hello everyone. My name is Debbie. We use big stories to push little faces.
Hello everyone, welcome to Chasing a Murder Talking News. Before we get started, be kind enough to subscribe, like, and say hello. We are continuing with the series of Life Beyond the Grave, the Vallow case. In this case, it's one of the worst cases I have seen personally, and it's one of the worst cases I've covered. It's hard to explain this case without giving people an idea of their belief system, and we spent a couple of series doing this. But now, it's time to start moving in the timeline. Lori Vallow, her new husband, Charles Vallow, her 2 children, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow, are living in Hawaii. Lori Vallow has discovered a new book or author, Chad Daybell. She's also quite a fan of doomsday author and prophet Julie Rowe. Chad and his wife Tammy have bought a house near Rexburg in Salem. This property is pretty big. It has several acres, a pond, and a barn. The hardest part about this for them, especially Tammy, is moving from the area they lived near their family for 18 years. Chad Daybell is hearing voices, and those voices are of a higher power, or at least attached to them. And these voices are giving him guidance of what he should do in his future. The voices also encourage him that he plays a special part in the second coming of Christ. He is told to look for active tribulations, to carry the message of warning, and to help people prepare for these end times approaching. Some of his predictions are actually about coming devastations to hit Earth. Some of them being huge earthquakes. Earthquakes so big that they're going to do a substantial amount of damage. Chad says in his blog that he can't fictionalize these events because he's not creative enough. But after covering this story for several years now, I've noticed that he's quite a grand manipulator. I want to remind you that he says he writes his books in a priesthood dedicated area. Usually that's BYU. It's no big surprise to those of us that follow this story that a lot of these stories that he writes in these books, he says gives his children an idea of where they are going in the future. Basically admitting that a lot of these novels are based on non-fiction visions. His kids seem to mean a lot to him. The year of 2015 is a huge time for these people surrounding Chad Daybell, especially for people like Hector Sosa Jr., Julie Rowe. Let's talk a little bit about Hector Sosa Jr., the author of Change is Coming. Hector Sosa Jr. claims that he too carries gifts similar to Chad Daybell and Julie Rowe, and he admits that he's gained these gifts because he inherited these gifts from his mother. People often wonder how Chad Daybell was able to actually get so many people to follow him. And here's the truth. There were a lot of people that were on the same page as him. It's just a matter of meeting up. Hector's has these visions are quite like Chad Daybell. He sees people invading the U.S., earthquakes in Utah. They predict plagues and sicknesses, concentration camps on U.S. soil, and something they really have in common is the fact that there's war coming and that saints will prevail against all these foreign invaders. Many of these people gathering to white camps and bring in their storage with them. People like Julie Rowe and Chad Daybell go online and support other authors like them. Julie Rowe wrote in her blog, quote, "I know Hector Sosa speaks the truth in what he shares in this book. The experiences he talks about and the details that he gives pertaining to the things he has been shown are similar, and in many cases identical to what I have been shown. This book is another wake-up call. It's an additional opportunity the Lord has given us to prepare for the days ahead. We need not fear if we will put our faith and trust in our Father in heaven and His plan for us." Julie Rowe, author of A Greater Tomorrow and the Time Is Now, end quote. You have these people gathering together, going to other websites, promoting one another, and having these little meetings behind the scenes, behind after church services. They saturate the LDS websites, the prepper websites, with their spam. And they are building a grand network system within the Mormon community. They know that there's a demand for end days, and there's a way to make money off these people, and they're doing it. So one of the big signs that they're looking for the end times is attached to the belief system of the lost tribes. Mormons believe that a lot of these lost tribes are native Indians of this country. And Hector Sosa says that his ancestors are of Indian descent. Hector says that Indians will play a huge role in the past and future of finding the gold plates. Now remember, Mormons believe that Jesus walked the American continent way before the Spanish, the French, the English, any of them set foot on it. I wish I had more time to explain this to you, but trust me, Mormons believe that Jesus did walk the American continent and gold plates were found on this continent. Hector Sosa's claim of where the Indians come from are from Brazil and Puerto Rico, and these people especially carry the gift of visions. He says that these people usually worship two gods, one for evil and one for good. Hector Sosa says that most of these visions come while he's wide awake. He wants people to understand that these are not dreams, and a lot of his visions speak about attacks on this American continent. Likewise, so does Julie Rowe and close friend Chad Daybell. And Hector admits that he met Chad Daybell while Chad was living in Springville online. And please don't forget that Chad approached him with the fact that he had a vision that Hector needs to write a book. And I believe we covered this already, but Chad eventually started coming over to Hector's house every Thursday over the period of about 2 months. And Chad offers to be his ghostwriter. I think it's important for you to understand that Chad does offer to be a ghostwriter for a lot of people. I believe Hector, at this point in his life, wanted someone who believed in him and his visions. And once they finish the book and it's published, which is around this time, they are very, very supportive of Hector Sosa. And after the book is out for a little bit, Hector does a few podcasts announcing where to buy this book. And they all become much bolder in sharing these visions outside of their little circle. Podcasts are starting to become a thing with these guys. Also, we know that Lori Vallow is in Hawaii, but we're hearing that she's planning on moving from Hawaii back to Arkansas. And around July 11th of 2015, her daughter Tylee tweets a photo with one of her friends doing Charlie Angel poses with the caption, "Partners in Crime." It seems that Tylee Ryan's life is a little bit better during this time, but according to April Raymond and a few other people that know the family, they say that Tylee does get sick quite often, and she spends a lot of time laying in her room. And here she is. She's in her teens, and it's still a mystery illness. According to family members and friends, Tylee spends a lot of time with her brother, J.J. Vallow, Colby's heading to college. It's around 2015 that there's a hint of major changes for Lori Vallow, and this has to be because she starts reading these books. The timeline is very consistent as to when Lori starts to see differently. It's mainly through the information she's getting from Julie Rowe and Chad Daybell. A lot of people like to blame Chad Daybell 100%, but Julie Rowe was one of the main people she was listening to. Julie Rowe is pushing a lot of fear, and she's very, very sure, at least that's the way she's talking, that they have to worry about tribulations. They said, after much tribulation cometh the blessing. And she quotes things such as D&C 103, 12 through 13. For after the much tribulation, as I have said unto you in a formal commandment, cometh the blessing. Behold, this is a blessing which I have promised after your tribulations and the tribulations of your brethren, your redemption, and the redemption of your brethren, even their restoration of the land of Zion, to be established, no more be thrown down. And as Lori Vallow starts listening more to this sort of stuff, the wife of Chad Daybell, Tammy, her life consists of being, well, she works. She has her true focus with her family. She serves delicious dinners each Sunday. And Chad mentions the fact that she's the one that never forgets a birthday, a holiday, and always spoils them with gifts. Tammy seems to have a pure heart. She loves animals. She loves Indian runner ducks. She even raises pigeons, chickens, cats, rabbits. And she loved them so much that she built an animal cemetery for her best friends that pass away. But we learned that Chad Daybell likes to place the control, look like the control is in Tammy's court. But the truth of the matter is, Chad Daybell was in control. And in my opinion, using manipulation tactics to do so. Because we know that Tammy Daybell enjoyed playing Farmville on Facebook. But Chad used her deceased relatives, her grandmother, to send a message to Tammy saying that she needed to quit playing that damn game. She needed to get back to the temple and do her temple work. So it seems that Chad got frustrated whenever Tammy wasn't doing something that he believed she should be doing. And his frustration starts around this time. Though Chad spends a lot of his time away from home, being a ghostwriter for people, writing his own books, having these grand visions of a great gathering, the preparation of end days. We learned that Chad Daybell seemed to like to walk in the dead or the dead's world. Remember, he worked as a cemetery sexton in a cemetery back in Springville as a teenager. And there, while at work, he would walk through this world of death and tombs and use it to help him to create stories he needed for a book that he wrote, One Foot in the Grave. He has communicated with ghosts. He has been, he played with theories with cremated ashes that he cared for. We learned that he had these feelings of killing massive amount of bees that had some odd satisfaction for him. The hearing voices grows. And this new series called Standing in Holy Places, and one of the titles called The Gathering, he would need a place in order to come up with these creative ideas like he did in the cemetery. He needed something, a world to be in every day to help him build the story. So I believe this is one of the reasons why he moves to Idaho, because behind the scenes, behind the church's back, there are many people saying that this area is the chosen area, the safe place to be as the second coming approaches. So Idaho, in reality, is the gathering place of the future. And by this time in the timeline, going from 2005, when he and his wife started this book publishing company, up until 2015. The book company has had a lot of ups and downs, but was starting to pick up again. And really, it was around 2005 that he started really thinking about, the second coming and the gathering. And it's supposedly set 10 to 15 years in the future. Remember, guys, the main trigger for this series was one morning he was traveling to the Manti pageant, where his company had set up a booth and sold their books to a lot of the visitors there. And he could see visions once he started to pass this McDonald's in the area, where he can see miles of empty fields to the west. Julie Rowe, along this period of time, along with her minions, spread the word that war is coming and it's time to build the Lord's army. And she's gaining quite a few followers, and many of them have these same visions taken over their minds. Julie Rowe is speaking at places like the Rexburg event, which is in July the 25th of 2015. But though a lot of people are talking about her books, her visions, her near-death experience, none of them really understand, what goes on in her sessions, which we'll learn a little bit later. She and Chad are using her books as messages. And one of those books that Chad uses is Escape to Zion. And he writes in a blog that the reason why he actually wrote the Escape to Zion is he turned to scriptures and the words of the modern prophets. And admittedly, at first, it was troubling to read many of these gloomy prophecies. He says, since he is a young father who is trying to provide for his family, I certainly prefer the current world situation compared to what has been prophesied to come soon. So here he's admitting that he has some kind of fear. The same thing Lori Vallow is going through at this time. Fear of all these prophecies. Chad admits that it wasn't until he completed his research that he came away confident. He admits that although there will be some times of trouble and trial, it will be even more glorious for those who are very faithful to the Lord. They will emerge purified from the troubled times, prepared to build New Jerusalem, and usher in an era of glory and peace. And his book, Escape to Zion, reflects the assurance that the Lord will care for his flock. So Lori Vallow will read this book, and she must take in a lot of this information as fact. And so the gathering begins. Chad starts to work on pamphlets and categorizing many of these prophecies. He also claims to have extra rare gifts. He is able to determine who is light and who is dark. He also starts to investigate things like pendulums. Chad Daybell is actually going to a few of Julie Rowe's sessions, energy sessions. And I have more information on these sessions coming up shortly. Like Julie, they are beginning to merge the religion into other belief systems. Julie has helpers when she's doing these energy sessions, one of them being Spencer Watson, a very young guy. We know she has one of her sessions on July 30th of 2015. And Julie Rowe, again, is a huge topic on the LDS websites. A lot of people, their opinions on her is basically epitome of modern priestcraft, allegedly. And they're reading a lot of rumors online about her, and some of them being fact, and giving their honest opinions. Many Mormons saying that she is off her rocker. One blogger wrote, I feel bad for the people that have cashed in their 401k, sold their homes, all to follow a loony with more than a apparent problem. Hopefully she gets help soon. Julie promises more enlightenment, more spiritual healing, more spiritual understanding, and working with deceased relatives through this energy code. And as I read the past blogs, I'm surprised by how many people do support her. Many of these sessions, she heightens self-esteem. She improves family relationships, personal relationships, increased spirituality, and in the beginning said that Laurel acts like the church supports her and her teachings. Many Mormons are questioning how long the church is going to allow this to go on. They believe that she's making a mockery of the church. But Chad Daybell doesn't seem to be as popular as Julie Rowe during this time, but he's still working behind the scenes. Many Mormons believe that she's implying that the church is endorsing her and that she's actually a challenge to religious and moral values or an advocate to unwarranted confrontation, because she will actually pick up married couples, and one of them disagreed that Julie Rowe is any type of prophet or seer, and the other spouse be 100% supportive of Julie. It ends up tearing families apart. It empties bank accounts. You need to keep up with what I'm talking about right here, because it's important for what happens with Lori in the future. They're going nuts. They're emptying their bank account. They are divorcing their spouse in order to follow these beliefs and support Julie Rowe. They're having firesides. They're having physical contact, encouraging open confession, encouraging open visions, which is not what the church supports at all. In fact, my research shows that there's more destruction in her wake than peace and love. And many of these Mormons that are against Julie are given warnings of what's to come if people continue to let Julie have all this success. There's going to be dire consequences in the future. And if they knew then just how right they were going to be, there are people who will believe every word that she and Chad spews out their mouth and use it to a level of superpower she wouldn't understand. And Julie Rowe's books by August of 2015 was featured in 13 straight Seagull book catalogs, which is almost unheard of, says Chad. That's quite a bit of reach. And I want to mention before we go any further, guys, if I repeat something, sometimes it just can't be helped. So in this timeline, Lori often talks about Joseph Ryan with anybody that will listen to her victimhood stories. And she seems to be very obsessed by hating Joe Ryan. She spent a lot of time and effort to paint Joseph in this light she wanted people to read. And important for you to understand is she did these things in front of her own children, including Tylee Ryan, the daughter of Joseph Ryan. And I think this is the point where Tylee Ryan understands how deceiving her mother could be. I believe that Tylee was able to witness her mother's mental struggles. And as Tylee got older, her maturity exceeded Lori Vallow. And in my opinion, her IQ as well. It appeared that Tylee Ryan was the parent and Lori Vallow was the child. And that's something we'll discuss more later. So something we learned through April Raymond, a friend that Lori met in Hawaii. She says that Lori talks about how Charles has spent millions of dollars in attorney fees to fight her ex-husband Joseph Ryan in court. Charles Vallow made good money, but we can definitely assume that there's no way that there was millions going to an attorney. So it shows you how she'll kind of exaggerate stories. And April Raymond claimed that she did hear both Lori and her brother Alex claim that they tried to kill Joseph Ryan, or at least threatened to murder him. So April Raymond has an idea of the personality and the type of people these people are. But an interesting fact is each story that she tells is different according to the person she is speaking to at the time. Lori's choice of words seemed to fit a certain environment, and how dramatic the story seems to be is based on how she wants to manipulate the situation. So keep in mind, there are many people who have heard both Lori and Alex claim to want to murder Joseph Ryan, but these friends, later on in this story, when it first broke, none of them really come forward and said, hey, this is something we heard her say. It took them time to do that, and some still haven't come forward to be a witness to what these two have said. So many dark secrets in this case. And what's most shocking to me is most of these friends of Lori, they won't admit it, but they enjoyed this extreme drama surrounding Lori. It made their lives more interesting. It didn't seem to matter if it was right or wrong. These people liked the free vacations, the things that she did for them, she was giving. They liked being part of this life and believing that they had a close role to play in that life. And that's my opinion based on my research, that so many people that claim to be close to God and do the right things were selling their soul to the devil himself. It's not until things really get dark and dirty that these people even disconnect from Lori and stop supporting her later on in this case. And many of them know that Lori is very dramatic, but they never stop being friends with her. A few friends said Lori was exaggerating quite a bit, but they kind of knew who she was. That's what they're admitting. Yet they continued to be friends with her for years. And Lori is really wanting to work her way into people's lives, including the church, and work her way to the top. But I believe that someone must see through her, because she gets to a certain point in the church and she just can't get any further. I think this bothers her quite a bit, the same as it bothered Chad Daybell. So did the church teach preparedness? Yeah, they even practiced. In some wards, leaders of the church will send people home early from church to practice being prepared for emergency situations. They're not allowed to use electrical items like anything for shaving, nothing electrical, period. That is to help them be prepared if there's ever a time that they have to live without electricity. But they're not really saying this has to do with the second coming of Christ. At this point, we know that Lori, her interests have been driven by authors of Doomsday, the second coming of Christ. John Young, Spencer, Chad Daybell, Julie Rowe, having a huge role to play in her mindset during this time and going forward. The blood moon is approaching. It's the end of summer. This creates a lot of chaos within the Mormon community, and this is something we're going to have to talk about in the next part of the series. I have to keep these videos down to at least 30 minutes. It's almost too long to upload for me. Guys, I want to thank all of you who have been very supportive to this channel. It really helps because I work so very hard. Thanks to those of you who have given on Patreon. Thank you so much for those who have subscribed, liked, and commented. You are truly mean so much to me. I don't think you understand. Don't forget, we still have girls out there that are missing. Their faces are forgotten. But there are families who are still out there searching. Please take a moment to share a story like Dulce, Jasmine Robinson, or Kiera Cole. I love you guys, and I'll see you guys soon.